In this video, I use a smoke machine to create a new background in my studio.
Adorama TV presents Take and Make Great Photography with Gavin Hoey.
Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that has everything for us photographers. Now, I'm really excited about doing this shoot because I get to use one of these. This is my 700 watt smoke machine or fog machine or hazer. They have a few different names, and this thing throws out loads of smoke, and I'm going to use that as a background in my shoot. Now, for this to work, you need a couple of things. Obviously, you need one of these little smoke machines, and these are really inexpensive, but you also need a dark background, hence the dark background I've got set up here. Now, they do add a terrific depth to the picture. They add a real feeling of mood and atmosphere. So they are really great to use and incredibly simple. So let's get this set up, we'll get our model ready, and we'll get on with the shoot. So today I'm joined in the studio by Kerry. Do you want to say hello, Kerry?
Hello.
And she's going to be acting the part of a fortune teller. Are you actually able to tell the future, Kerry?
No, we'll see.
Well, so you'll notice there's something distinctly missing from this shoot. Yeah, there's no smoke. Don't worry, we will get to the smoke. In fact, the smoke should be the very last thing you add to the shoot, because once you've started the smoke, it's kind of hard to get rid of it. First thing we need to do is actually set up the lights. So let's just run with one key light and get that set first. Right, so the light for this is going to be my Streetlight 360, and I've got it in a Parapop Glow softbox. And this is just going to give me some lovely soft wrapping light around Kerry's face, but we need to get it in the right place, and I'm just going to elevate it up so it's a little bit taller and a little bit higher than Kerry, and just coming down onto her face like that. So next thing we need to do is to check the meter reading. Now, ideally, I would like an aperture of f8 for this shot. f8 should give me enough depth of field to get Kerry's face in focus, but get the background slightly soft, and that's what I'm after. So to do it, I'm going to use my flash meter to take a flash meter reading. And all I'm going to do is just pop the flash meter underneath Kerry's chin with the little dome pointing back at the flash. I'll press the test button on the radio trigger, and that tells me an aperture at the moment of f5.6. Now, I could do a couple of things. I could say, okay, f5.6 and dial that into the camera. I could change my ISO to give me slightly more sensitivity to light, or, and this would be my recommended way, just change the flash power. And the great thing is I can do that right here on the remote for the Streetlight. So 3 clicks. That's going to give me one more stop of light, but never take it for granted. Let's pop this underneath. And sure enough, I'm on f8. So that gives me the exact aperture I want. I will dial in f8 into the camera and take a test shot. Here we go. Okay, Kerry, if you can just look up to the light. And as you can see, that gives some great light on Kerry, looks fantastic. And that background, well, it's not quite black, but it's certainly very dark. And we're going to fill that with the smoke. So I'm almost ready for the smoke, but if I just put smoke back there, you won't see it because there won't be any light falling on the smoke at all. So I need to add a second light into the background that's going to illuminate the smoke. So this is going to be my second light. It's just going to be a light from behind pointing back towards the camera and illuminating the back of Kerry. Now, normally this would be called a separation light, but in this case, we've got to think about what's going to happen in a few minutes. We're going to have smoke all the way around here, and the light is going to become more diffused. So I could test this now, and I will check it in a second, but the effect is going to be different when we start the smoke. How different? Well, that's the beauty of smoke. It's going to be different every few minutes. So there's no rights and there's no wrongs, but one thing I would suggest is before you start using smoke, have any extra things that you think you might need to hand, because you don't want to go hunting around for it. Once you start using the smoke, this place will fill up very quickly. So I've got some coloured gels, and I've also got a grid which might come in handy just to give us a bit more direction. I'm not sure, so I'm going to keep it to hand, and I'll pop these on the floor so I know exactly where they are. Okay, let's just take a test shot with this light. Here we go. And as you can see, that just adds a little bit of glow around Kerry's shoulders, a little bit of a separation. So the only thing left to do is to get the smoke machine set up and warmed up, because it will take a few minutes for the smoke machine to actually warm up before it produces any smoke, and then we can take some smoky pictures. Brilliant, there you go. Wow, so there we are. The smoke was incredibly effective, even in a small studio space like this. However, everything is a little bit kind of smoky and hazy, and we're having a bit of trouble seeing now. So I think now is a really good time to jump over to Photoshop, where we'll edit one of my favorite pictures, and I'm gonna do that right now.
The smoke machine was fantastic to work with, but to make sure it went smoothly, I did a couple of things. First of all, I made sure that the smoke machine wouldn't set off any of the smoke alarms. We tested that in advance. And also I made sure the smoke fluid was water-based, so it didn't leave any sticky residues, and of course non-toxic. Finally, during the shoot, I kept checking everybody was okay and nobody had any breathing issues, because the smoke really can get down into your chest very quickly. So with that in mind, looking back at the pictures, some of them were fantastic and needed almost no Photoshop whatsoever. A couple needed a bit more help. So let's have a look at one of those. Now in this shot, there's obviously one large thing we need to remove, which is the softbox in the top corner. And you might think, well, that was a mistake, but in a small studio, you've got to have your lights close, and also getting your light close means I had control of the lighting and softness of the lighting too. And I know in Photoshop, I can remove that really easily. But before I do, let's just do a little bit of general sorting out of the picture. I'm just going to come down to the auto button here and try that first, because you'll be surprised how often that actually gives you the effect you want. And I think that's great. I'll leave that alone. Next, I'm going to come down to the colors, and I'm going to increase the vibrance, because I had a light with a blue gel behind Kerry, and I really want to enhance that blue and bring out the red in her hair as well, and vibrance does exactly that. Finally, I'm going to go to the clarity, because this is going to use clarity brilliantly. It'll bring up all of the texture on the smoke and really add to the atmosphere. The trouble is, it's a global effect, and it also brings up stuff on Kerry's face and in her hands that I really don't want. So I'm going to reduce those areas by getting the adjustment brush, and on the adjustment brush, I'll get the clarity for the brush and take it all the way down to -100, the exact opposite. And I'll paint away clarity from her face like that, and from her hands, and we can just sort of dab in a couple of areas across her shoulders like that. There we go. And that should give me the clarity on the background, but reduce it and remove it from her face. Okay, so with that done, I can click on Open Image and jump into Photoshop, because there's a couple of things I need to do, particularly the cloning, that although I can do in RAW, Photoshop has much better tools to do cloning. Let's have a look. Let's start with the big obvious one, the softbox here. Now to remove that, I'm just going to use the patch tool. And with the patch tool, it's really simple to use. You just loosely draw around the thing you want to remove, all the way around, and then you get a selection. And you drag that selection to another part of the image, and when you let go, Photoshop will patch it. But there's a secret. Have a look at the bottom part of where the softbox was, and you'll see there's an obvious difference in tone between where I'm sampling and where it was originally. And what I'm looking for is to try and match the tones reasonably close. So somewhere down there looks a much better match across the tones and as I come there, that's even better. And when I let go, that gives Photoshop a much more fighting chance to try and get the whole thing to match much closer. Now, if I just hide the marching ants for a second with Control H, you can still see a definite edge there. That's where the structure comes in. So I can adjust the structure and reduce it down for a softer blend. Now, in the new versions of Photoshop, this is a numbering system, but it used to be called sort of very loose or very tight and so on. And I think that works really well. Now, that's fine for larger areas, but what about small bits? What about things like the peg that's holding on the headscarf? Well, for small areas, I'm just going to get the spot healing brush and just paint over it with the spot healing brush. It does a remarkably good job of just fixing little small bits. Occasionally it goes wrong, just Control Z and try and use a brush that's a little bit more in keeping with the size of the thing you want to remove. And you'll be surprised how quick you can go and tidy up your shots. So there you go. There is my amazing fortune teller smoky picture completed. I have to say the smoke machine worked extremely well and gave some fantastic results. And I'm definitely going to be using it again in my studio in the near future. Now, if you want to see more videos from myself and the other amazing presenters here on Adorama TV, here's what you need to do. You need to click on the subscribe button. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching. That's so much fun.
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy to use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.